Imagine a 12-meter truck turning a corner as tightly as a regular car. Sounds impossible, right? Well, thanks to rear axle steering, these giants can maneuver through medieval streets, crowded construction sites, and urban areas that seem almost inaccessible. But how does this hidden system actually work? What secrets lie behind those moving axles? Today you're going to discover how a silent technology transforms multi-ton colossi into true masters of agility. The fundamentals of rear axle steering. Rear wheel steering, also known as rear axle steering or steering of auxiliary axles, is exactly what its name suggests. Instead of being fixed and rigid, some of the rear wheels can turn. This feature isn't present on all trucks, but it is common on 4- or 5-axle vehicles, especially those used in construction, heavy haul transport, or logistics in tight urban environments. Picture these massive machines trying to maneuver through narrow streets, ancient alleys in European cities, or job sites with no room to turn around. Without this system, entering or exiting such places would often be impossible. How the system works. Modern trucks use electronically controlled hydraulic actuators. These devices receive information in real time. When the driver turns the steering wheel, sensors instantly analyze the truck's speed, steering angle, load weight, and even the dynamic movement of a trailer if one is attached. With all that data, the system commands the rear axles to turn a few degrees in the opposite direction of the front wheels. Even though the angle is small, just a few degrees, the difference in maneuverability is enormous. Technically, this is known as counterphase steering. At low speeds, this technology can reduce the turning radius by up to a quarter. In other words, a 12-meter truck can turn in a space designed for regular passenger cars. A practical example of its usefulness. Let's take a clear case. A crane truck with a 10x4 configuration, fully loaded, needs to enter a narrow alley. Without rear axle steering, the driver would have to reverse and readjust the trajectory several times, wasting fuel, time, and even risking damage to walls, sidewalks, or parked vehicles. With this system, the truck enters in a single, smooth movement, almost as if it were a medium-sized car. This has become an essential asset in crowded urban zones, construction sites with no turning room, or European towns with street layouts dating from centuries ago, long before anyone imagined trucks weighing dozens of tons. A major contribution to safety. For drivers, it's not just about comfort. Safety improves dramatically as well. Fewer multi-point maneuvers mean a lower risk of hitting pedestrians, cyclists, or damaging public and private property. Every turn becomes more controlled, more predictable, and safer. Tire wear and cost savings. However, one of the biggest and least discussed advantages is the dramatic reduction in tire wear. On traditional trucks, the fixed rear wheels are dragged sideways during turns. This phenomenon, known as lateral scrubbing, causes premature tire wear, increases rolling resistance, raises fuel consumption, and even damages pavement. Now, imagine that multiplied by dozens of turns per day across an entire fleet of heavy trucks. Costs skyrocket in just a few weeks. But by allowing the rear axles to follow the natural trajectory of the vehicle, lateral dragging disappears. The result? Up to 30% longer tire life, lower fuel bills, fewer blowouts, and reduced stress on suspension components, all representing a silent but enormous savings for fleet operators. Liftable rear axles. The technology doesn't stop at steering. Many of these rear axles are also liftable. That's right, they can be raised off the ground when they're not needed. Why? Because when the truck is lightly loaded, traveling straight on a highway, or needs to reverse in a tight area, those extra axles add little value. On the contrary, they create more friction and consume more fuel. By lifting them, the vehicle reduces rolling resistance, burns less fuel, experiences less tire wear, and makes reversing far easier. The most interesting part? All of this happens automatically. The onboard computer, known as the ECU, constantly analyzes load weight, speed, and steering angle, deciding in real time when to steer, when to lift, and by how much. The driver only needs to focus on driving. Why Europe leads in this technology? Although rear axle steering exists worldwide, it is far more common in Europe, and not by coincidence. European cities typically have narrower streets, especially in historic centers. Urban deliveries require millimetric precision, often involving reverse maneuvers into tiny loading zones. Crane trucks, dump trucks, and other construction vehicles must also navigate crowded, irregular terrain. That's why in Europe this technology is seen frequently on models like the Scania R Series 10x4, Volvo FMX construction trucks, or MAN TGS and DAF CF units used as municipal sweepers and tankers. In many cities, regulations even require trucks to have maneuverability solutions, especially in low-emission zones where space is limited and delivery windows are strict. And the trend is growing. As cities become denser and regulations tougher, more and more trucks are incorporating rear axle steering. This is even spreading to North America, where heavy vehicle design is beginning to adapt to these needs. Other similar functions in trucks and heavy vehicles. Rear axle steering isn't the only intriguing innovation. Some modern trucks are equipped with adaptive air suspension systems that adjust chassis height depending on the load, improving both highway aerodynamics and access to low-clearance areas. There are also features such as automatic traction engagement on auxiliary axles, which activates only when conditions require it, saving fuel when it's not needed. Certain models include advanced stability control systems that distribute braking force across the axles to prevent skidding, especially valuable on wet roads or mountain routes. There are even lesser-known technologies, like all-wheel steering systems in certain military or specialized vehicles, where both the front and rear axles turn in the same direction at high speeds to stabilize movement on long straightaways. In civilian applications, some fire trucks already use this capability to enter extremely tight streets. The key: invisible but decisive control. What's most fascinating is that all these features operate almost invisibly to the driver. Intelligent automation analyzes parameters such as speed, load weight, steering angle, and terrain slope, then determines the most efficient action. The result is a vehicle that feels far more agile than its size, suggests capable of slipping into spaces that once seemed impossible. So the next time you see a multi-axle truck gliding smoothly around an impossibly tight corner, remember, what you're witnessing is the outcome of years of engineering and systems working silently to save fuel, extend component life, improve safety, and make it possible for cities and roads to coexist with these giants. If you were surprised to learn how rear axle steering transforms these giants into masters of movement, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell. That way, you won't miss the upcoming stories where we'll reveal more hidden secrets of modern trucks. See you on the next route, always with a new titan, ready to challenge the impossible.